It's time for the Pittsburgh Sports Reporters, an inside look at your teams in your city.
Welcome to the Pittsburgh Sports Reporters. I'm David Todd of 970 ESPN with my colleague Mark Madden of 1059 The X. You can hear Mark weekdays 3 to 6. Unfortunately, Mark's my competition. You can hear me weekdays 4 to 7, and you can also hear both of us on Steelers Nation Radio. It's Monday, July 29th, Mark. Everybody wants to say this series, starting today for the Pirates, 5-game series at home against the Cardinals going into the trade deadline, is the biggest series in PNC Park history. I'm not buying it.
Well, what's bigger?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. The only reason this is going to be a big series is if the Pirates get swept. If they go 1-4 or 4-1 or anything in between, it's just going to push the next series to being bigger, the next series to being bigger. They've done enough work to this point in the season that this is just another mile marker on the way for me.
Well, I think it'll show whether they're not as good as St. Louis or in the ballpark of St. Louis, which I'm not sure they are. I think
No
St.
question,
Louis
St.
is
Louis
the
a better
best team in Major League Baseball. And if you look at the stats, the Pirates pitching is a little better than the Cardinals. The Cardinals hitting is a lot better than the Pirates. And I think the big story this week is we find out whether or not the Pirates management and ownership really wants to win. What they do between now and Wednesday's trade deadline. I predict they'll do nothing. The goals of this organization haven't changed. The goal is to make money. Winning doesn't mean winning counts. It just means it's a happy coincidence. It's happening right now.
That's an easy line, but if you look at the last two trade deadlines, they did two different things. In 2011, they went the rental route. They got Derek Lee and Ryan Ludwig. Ludwig was terrible. Derek Lee was great. They faded. Last year, they went the other way. They got guys who they thought would help them longer term. Wandy Rodriguez, Travis Snyder. Didn't matter. They faded down the stretch. You look at what they've done, it's almost impossible for them not to make the playoffs. And the way the playoffs are set up this year, it looks like the best team in the National League is going to come out of the Central, whoever it is. And it looks like the other two wild cards are going to come out of the Central too. So the problem is what you've got is 3 teams, and only one of them is going to make the National League Championship Series. So the question is, when you say it's all about money, what do you expect this team to do in terms of looking ahead? They're going to be competitive for the next couple of years versus what their situation is right now.
Well, first off, I'm not so sure they are going to be competitive the next couple of years. If you made me predict right now, and this is based on not knowing what they'll do at the deadline,
sure,
I'd say they'll finish under 500 next year. I just think they'll have a fade next year. It's an inexperienced team. It has to learn how to deal with success. That's how I feel based on what I think will happen between now and the start of next season. But that's all the more reason to make hay while the sun is currently shining.
Fair point.
They're going to make the playoffs, so why not take advantage of that opportunity? Why not go get somebody, more than a Derek Lee, more than a Ryan Ludwig, or at least at that level to help them compete with the Reds and St. Louis in what, like you said, is going to wind up being a National League Central play-in all the way to the NLCS.
Yeah, good point. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. What we don't know, and I think it's it's easy to criticize, is we don't know what the market's like. And everybody's saying, I don't necessarily buy this because I think this happens every year, but everybody's saying it's a massive seller's market because everybody thinks they're in it. Well, the reality is, if anybody is paying attention, they realize there are only 6 teams for 5 spots in the National League, and they're 2 for 1 in the National League West. So it's not everybody's in it. The point is, if teams like the Phillies say, look, we're not in it, but the reality is we think Cliff Lee and Chase Utley are guys we want to keep around because we think we got a good enough team we're going to compete next year. Maybe guys like maybe the guy you want isn't going to be available.
I agree, and I think when people say it's a seller's market, that doesn't necessarily help the Pirates because I think they'll be at the back of the line when it comes to buyers. I just don't think they'll offer up as much for the players that everybody's going to want to get. Look at Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, I know the Marlins are pretty much taking him off the market, but from all accounts, what the Pirates were talking to the Marlins about giving them for Stanton was going to put them, with no chance to get him.
Well,
which, by the way,
we never heard. I know that we've never heard names
associated.
Right,
but they're not going to trade Tyon or Polanco. That's what I hear. So that puts them at the back of the line.
I think
for a guy like Stanton.
Polanco has to go in the deal. And the reality is the Marlins have never said he's on the market. So we are talking.
Well, now they have said, at least privately, that he's off. So the point is, I could see the Pirates making the offer for not just Stan, anybody that's just enough to not get him, if you know what I mean. Well, we tried. We did our best, but oh well. What we have is good enough to make the playoffs, and it's also cheaper. They won't say that.
Okay, so it looks like the last 12 months of what Neil Huntington's done, everything's turned to gold. Give him that?
I credit a little bit Neal, a little bit coincidence, a little bit happenstance.
Fair enough. And on the downside as well, when things. I mean, but you look at Martin, you look at Lariano. The reality is, those guys could have signed.
No doubt.
They did. So
especially Martin. Lariano was going to be a gamble no matter where he went because of his arm problems, his injury history. But Russell Martin was a great get because the Yankees actually got caught asleep at the wheel when the Pirates signed Russell Martin. How many teams could say they out-negotiated the Yankees given their bankroll?
And twice in 2 years with the A.J. Burnett deal,
right.
Getting stuff from the Yankees. So for me, it's as much of the question about how the Pirates are going to do comes back to the guys who've been here. Garrett Jones,
yes,
Neil Walker. We see Marte and Pedro have as up and down as you can be, and even Andrew McCutchen, who has faded in the past, August, September, the past 2 years. I think that stuff is going to probably be more important because we know that any guy you acquire for the last 55 games of the season, at most is going to be a difference of one, at the best case scenario, 2 marginal wins.
Well, right, but you're talking about now getting a guy for the playoffs. And if he's a difference in even 1 playoff win, then he's worth getting, especially if the Pirates do wind up in that single elimination wild card game. That wild card game, by the way, I like it because it'll provide a lot of drama and it provides an extra playoff spot. But what a crapshoot. If you put the 1962 New York Mets, the worst team in history, in that one-game playoff
against the 27 Yankees, they might beat them.
They would win that game exactly 25% of the time. That was their winning percentage back then, 25%. So it really is a crapshoot. If the Pirates do get to that game, I want to see the PNC Park. I think that is the only advantage you get in a one-game elimination. And I think the drama would be incredible.
Yeah, no question for the fans. That's great stuff. And even Mark, obviously now the huge premium on winning the division. I mean, it basically doubles your odds of getting to the World Series. But I've always said, look, 8 teams get into the playoffs, and you might as well just roll dice because it's 12.5% for all of them. The difference in a 7-game series, even versus a 1, isn't that great. Any team can win the 60 Pirates against the 60 Yankees. Any team can win a 7-game series.
In one series, yeah.
Sure,
the more layers of playoffs you add,
yes,
in any sport, the less likely it is the best team is going to win. Here's the Pirates' best case scenario. They win the division, which I don't think they will, but that's their best case scenario. And then the Reds beat the Cardinals in that one-game playoff, which could easily happen.
Well, and you're right. And so for the Pirates, when they're thinking about playing those 2 teams, one of the things that would be interesting for the Reds is Johnny Cueto owns the Pirates. He hadn't been healthy, but he owns them. But Homer Bailey has owned the Pirates at PNC Park. It'd be interesting decision to see who Dusty Baker would give the ball to. On the Pirates side, who you giving the ball to?
A.J. Burnett.
You're not giving it to Lariano?
Nope, A.J. Burnett.
Really?
Yeah, he's the heart and soul of that team. He's the blood and guts. He's not had a great season, but a lot of that's because of bad run support, which I know is coincidental from pitcher to pitcher.
True.
But I go with Burnett. And then you have Lariano
for the
first game of the divisional series.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Of course, I think everybody's heard the news. Jason Grilli, it's a kind of a crapshoot whether he's going to be back this year or not. Best case scenario, early September.
And how good will he be when he comes back?
I don't think we'll see he or Wandy the rest of the year. That's just my opinion.
I don't either.
And that's the one place the Pirates could lose somebody. So Wednesday, the trade deadline. The Pirates, of course, 3 games with the Cardinals until then. Game tonight, Westbrook against Lariano, and then the doubleheader tomorrow. And then I think the trade deadline, if I remember correctly, is 4 o'clock on Wednesday.
I believe that's right.
So before the game Wednesday, we should know a lot more about this team. Mark, for a lot of people, Friday, Saturday were the biggest days of the year. It's kind of Christmas comes early as the Steelers report to camp. They put the pads on today. Backs on backers, kind of interesting. Just going into camp, big picture-wise, is there anything that's kind of intriguing to you for the next month? Or what is the most intriguing storyline?
Well, first off, I just want to say hello to all you pathetic people up there in your cheap lawn furniture with your styrofoam coolers thinking you know what you're observing from high up on a hill. Please, get a life, get a job, get out of there today. Now, in terms of what's interesting about the Steelers, the elephant in the room is I don't think they're that good. I mean, they went 8-8 last year. I don't think they're necessarily a better team on paper this year. Lamar Woodley, if he rebounds, that's a big thing. But there's so many question marks. But,
yes,
they're the wide receiving core, they don't have a number 1. No matter what they think, they don't have a number 1. The cornerbacks, Cortez Allen, how good is he going to be? We don't really know. He's and I don't want to stand out on quantity because I liked what we saw of him.
A little bit last year, very good. The last 2 games.
But Ike didn't have a great year. Maybe he's on the downhill slide.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just think there's a lot of question marks. And I think the biggest question mark of all is how does Haley adjust the offense?
You want him to throw the ball down the field.
I don't think he can now. That's the ironic part.
Well, look, I'll tell you, I from day one I've been a Manny Sanders fan. He's been injured a bit. No question. He didn't
Not last year.
No, he didn't have a good year last year. He was coming back for a little bit of a knee tweak. I think he's the real deal. And I've penciled him in, Mark, for 70 catches, 1,000 yards, 6 to 8 TDs. That obviously would make a huge difference.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm with you. They need to throw the ball down the field a little bit. And can Antonio Brown and Manny Sanders be guys to stretch the field like that?
You see, I still think, and this is not a popular opinion, I still think Art II dictates what the offense is. He's not down there calling plays, obviously. He doesn't draw up plays for Haley's playbook. But when Haley was in Kansas City, he had the great running back, Jamal Charles.
Yeah, love him.
And he pounded the ball. In Arizona, he had Kurt Warner, the great quarterback.
Wing it around the field.
Exactly. Now in Pittsburgh, he's underutilizing his best players. And that seems to me to be his desire to stick to a preordained game plan handed down by management. I hope that's not the case. But, boy, Art II reminds me more and more of Jerry Jones every day. Just very interfering, albeit on a much quieter level. I mean, do you think that's possible?
I don't think it's impossible. Let me put it that way. I think Art is involved, but I'd like to think Mike and Todd have a little bit more control. But I think there's probably a sit-down in March every year.
Maybe Todd just wants a job.
Todd, no question, Todd realizes that, this could be the last hitch on the trail if he doesn't get it right. So that's
if
important.
they turn Ben Roethlisberger loose and Manny Sanders lives up to the potential you project for him, which I agree is a possibility, okay, they're a 10-win team, maybe even better than that. If they play the same tired, backwards crap they did last year on offense, they might win 6.
How much of that is predicated on good offensive line play?
How much is predicated on Heath Miller's return?
I'd say 1A and 1B.
Exactly. I mean, not so much the blocking with Heath, because I think the offensive line, as is, has a lot of potential. I'm not sure he's going to have to help out quite as much as he used to blocking-wise. But, boy, if he's not out there in patterns, that puts a lot of pressure on a not great wide receiving core.
All right, Mark.
Maybe Le'Veon Bell out of the backfield, too. That's the X factor.
Good hands. 400 touches last year with Michigan State. Mark, I'm going to ask you, just looking forward for Steeler fans thinking about this season, yes or no, is this the last season in the black and gold? I'm going to give you 5 or 6 names. Okay? Ready. We'll start off. Brett Kiesel.
I think if he wants to come back, he'll come back in a reduced role at a reduced price.
I agree with that. Larry Foote.
I don't think he'd be back this year if Sean Spence was healthy, but he has to be. Maybe he'll have to be next year, too, but I think it's probably his last season.
I think so, too. Ryan Clark.
God, I hope it's that son of a bitch's last season.
I
can't stand the guy. Ryan, I can't even make the gesture. Wait, I can. It's the internet. Can I do that? No, better not.
I think it's Ryan's last season. Troy Polamalu.
I think it depends on this year. I think if he can keep it together health-wise and have a big year, although the funny part is, David, Troy tends to, the last couple years, injured, bad season. Healthy, great season.
Yeah.
Injured, bad season. So if he's healthy and has a great season, who's to say the next one won't be a down year? But I think that's totally in Troy's hands. I think Troy is one of those guys who has the cachet with that organization. He gets the power of decision-making. But if you made me say I think it's his last year.
You do?
Yes.
I'll take the other side of that.
Because he's not a lifer. I think it might be a Troy's volition. He's always told me he's not a lifer.
Okay, fair enough. Ike Taylor going to be into the last year of his contract, make $8 million next year. Plays well this year. Is he back?
They really like Ike.
Yeah.
And Dan really likes Ike.
And
remember
Ike
that
keeps
video?
himself in great shape.
Oh, it was the greatest video ever. Come on.
Who can forget that? Unfortunately, it's burned into my mind.
I think Ike will be back, yes.
Yeah, I do
I think
too.
Ike's still pretty good, actually.
How about Heath Miller?
They really like him, don't they?
Yeah.
See, that's the one thing about the Steelers, for better or worse. They decide who they like, and then how they do isn't the be-all and end-all.
We have seen him get rid of guys, plenty of guys along the way.
Yeah, but they've kept a lot of guys a year too long.
Is there anybody on this roster they've kept a year too long going into the season?
Potentially a ton of them.
Well,
I mean, put it this way. Have they kept Jason Worlds a year too long? Probably not, because he's young, but he stinks.
And he's free.
You know, Cam Hayward, Ziggy Hood,
if you're free, anybody under $1 million, it's not a year too long. You know,
that's a good point. That's a real good point.
Bucks.
But the thing is about the Steelers, their old guys aren't the problem.
The young guys haven't stepped up.
That's exactly right.
They need Hood, Hayward, you named them, Worlds. They need those guys, and Brown and Sanders have to be good this year. The line has to come together. You hit it on the head. I mean, look, there are a lot of question marks. Maybe their front 22 is as good as anybody if they play it to their potential. Depth, big question marks.
You know what really screwed them up at least in their minds, was when Spence got hurt.
Yeah.
Because they really like him. I really like him. I liked him in college, and I think he's a perfect fit for playing alongside Timmons in the middle of that defense.
Run, sideline to sideline.
And they say he might be back by the middle of the year, but I find that very hard to believe, don't you? That was a grievous injury.
Yeah, tough stuff. The fact that they're talking about him playing football again, I think, is good stuff. We'll see. We'll root for him. But
yeah, absolutely. And I think he could help a lot. But, again, how good will he be when he gets back?
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's edition
They
of
should
Pittsburgh.
take a tendon from Liriano's arm and plant it into Spence's knee.
Good stuff. Mark Madden, 105.9 The X, and I'm David Todd from 970 ESPN. Thanks for watching.